What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the host, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with a very special review roundup episode for you all this week. Our apologies. This week has been hectic with everyone's schedules, so there won't be a full show of the podcast this week. But hey, have no fear. The boys and I will be back next week with a full episode for you all as we wrap up the summer movies. You know, this has been, like I said, this has been a great summer of the movies, if you ask me. And we'll have to recap next week. I mean, we got a few movies still to review, of course. I think what's this week? We got next week is The Roses and Caught Stealing are both end of the summer, the last Friday of August. But you know, we will probably start to wind down the summer movie season, do a little recap next week, and I can't wait. You know, in a few weeks we have our fall movie preview lineup. I love when we do the kind of like our preview of like what to look forward to in the fall. So that'll be in a couple of weeks. But again, our apologies, scheduling, of course, kind of conflicted for this week's episode recording. But hey, have no fear. Like I said, we will be back for you all next week. In the meantime, of course, you can find this podcast on your favorite podcast platform, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, or Spotify. We also have our full video element of the show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Whether you're on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, twice, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, or YouTube Music, or youtube.com. Don't be a stranger. Subscribe, rate, follow the show. We want to hear from you guys. Literally, your feedback really is the heart and backbone of this community and this show. So don't be a stranger. Leave us a review, leave us a comment, follow the show, subscribe, because again, we want to hear from you all. Your input really helps us drive the show. What do you want to see more of? You want to see more reviews of certain shows or certain genre, or have more guests, stuff like that. Really, the more feedback helps us get more access to events and festivals and screenings, and of course more coverage. So seriously, don't be a stranger. Subscribe, rate, follow the show. Leave us a like. We want to hear from you all. So thank you all for tuning in, and thank you all for being a valued member of this community and this show. It really truly means the world to us. But on this week's review roundup episode, like always, I have two. You know what? Not so true this time. I guess there was more. I guess so. It is still on brand. Who am I kidding? On this week's review roundup episode, I have my reviews of Nobody 2 hitting theaters this weekend, and of course the long-awaited 22 year in the making sequel of Freakier Friday. I legit just walked out of Freakier Friday like 10 minutes ago. I came right to the review because I was like, man, I only have one review for tonight for Nobody 2. And I checked my local Regal app and I said, oh, there's a showing after work. So I came home from the office, went right to the movies, and here we are. So I'm really eager to review both of these movies for you all this week. I'm really happy. Again, this is we might do a spoiler discussion of Weapons. That was the original plan for tonight, but we'll probably push it back till next week. Like I said, I'm really happy, as you probably saw. I mean, if you're a movie buff like me, or just loving any kind of the movie news or updates, seeing how well Weapons did this last weekend, opening weekend, made me so happy. I've seen it twice now. I will probably see it a third time this weekend, if not next week. Seeing original films this year do so well makes me super happy. Like I said, seeing Sinners do so well, seeing F1 do so well, now seeing Weapons do very well, it just makes me so happy that genre filmmaking, but also original filmmaking is doing so well. And I do think that I think maybe post COVID and even before COVID too, it was just the originality was just really getting pushed to the wayside, unfortunately. But I think word of mouth, and I think social media, podcasters like us and reviewers like us, influencers, I think they have really a good outlet to kind of promote movies like that. So I might kind of criticize social media here and there, and kind of like other podcasts, but other kind of just social media is good and bad, but in this case, I will definitely say that it was really cool to see how just word of mouth spread for Weapons, kind of how it did with Sinners and F1. The marketing of those movies has been great. Shout out to Warner Brothers for having 3 original films do so well, both opening weekend and critically. I do think that if that's a sign of the rest of the year, I think we're really in a good spot theatrically, as well as originality comes from filmmaking. So I really hope that from now on, from mid-August to the end of the year, that the theatrical business is healthy, the movie theater going experience is healthy, but also original filmmaking is really healthy too. So I'm really excited and really overly optimistic, I would say, about filmmaking and original storytelling going forward. But again, Not so original filmmaking in this episode, of course, because I have two sequels to review for you all. And I'm going to start, and again, as always, in order I saw them in. And I'm starting with Nobody 2. We went to the press screening. Shout out to our friends, of course, at Movies More Fun and Universal Pictures for the invite. And we went to the press screening on Tuesday. And you might have heard me say this on the podcast before, but man, do I love that first Nobody. That first Nobody is fantastic. That was a big surprise for me. I remember seeing the trailers. I think it was like around Thanksgiving during like 2020, so like right till the middle of COVID. And I think a friend of mine was like, dude, this trailer looks great. And I said, okay. And I was like, oh, it kind of reminds me of like John Wick. And you see like, oh, from David Leitch, who directed the first John Wick and has done stuff like, Bullet Train and The Fall Guy, Atomic Blonde. And I'm like, oh, for sure, John Wick-esque. And of course, the writer of the first 3 John Wick movies wrote Nobody. And I was like, oh, okay, for sure. Definitely John Wick-esque. And everyone kept saying it. It was like, oh, this is if John Wick was a suburban dad, this would be it. And that's kind of the premise with Bob Odenkirk. But again, you don't think of you think action star, you don't think of Bob Odenkirk, Saul from Breaking Bad, or Mr. Show with him and David Cross. You're like, Bob Odenkirk, the action John Wick level kind of, action movie. All right, I guess whatever. But again, I had to give that the props to David Leitch and his wife and producing partner Kelly McCormick, and also Chad Stahelski. That Chad didn't have to do with those movies, but again, these stunt performers and their action filmmakers, they know how to really cast anyone and make the action around them. That's definitely their specialty. And you've seen movies like the John Wick franchise. You've seen stuff like Violent Night, Fall Guy, Bullet Train, Nobody. Film that we didn't care for, as you probably know on the podcast multiple times, or you've seen us on our videos on YouTube. We weren't fans of Love Hurts with Ke Huy Quan and Ariana DeBose. That movie was a bit of a stinker. But again, David Leitch and Kelly McCormick and Chad Stahelski, like I said, are really good at really crafting an action movie and story around their actors and who they cast. So Nobody, I remember seeing that with our friend Hamza back in 2021, like March 2021. And this is when like theaters were still trying to make a comeback. Like they were like, I know by us, theaters were opening, but it wasn't full capacity. And I really want to say either it was an invite to a screening or like some kind of like promotion that I won through a raffle. And I remember we went to the Alamo Draft House here before they left Phoenix back in 21 as well. And I remember my buddy and I, Hamza, we went in, only 2 of us, and we had like the best time. We're like, this movie is awesome. It's an hour 25. It went by super fast. Like I said, it's suburban dad John Wick with Bob Odenkirk. And I remember just walking out. I'm like, man, A, it was fun being back in the theater, first off. And 2, it was just, I think that was my first movie back. What was it? Yeah, I want to say it was I went to the drive-in, like that counts, whatever. But the Halloween before. But I think being back in the theater, we saw Tenet. I'm way off. We saw Tenet at IMAX, but it was very like it was like like 20% capacity, whatever it was. But that to me, it was like, oh, this is a feeling of being back in the movies again with a good friend of mine, and just laughing, having a good time, and enjoying the movie. I'm rocking out. I'm like, that was so much fun. It was so much fun. It was a surprise again because the trailers look good, but I was like, oh, okay, well, sure, whatever. And I remember walking out like, man, I had a big smile on my face. I remember I bought that on 4K that year it came out. And that was in my top 10 of the year. I mean, again, it was, movies were coming back, of course, in 2021, but that was my, I think, top 3 of 2021. And it was my top 1, I want to say, until Spider-Man No Way Home came out. And obviously that trumped it because, I'm a massive Spider-Man fan. That movie just, you heard in the podcast, the movie just means the world to me. I love that movie so much. But again, for a while, nobody was on my number 1 favorite movie of that year up until No Way Home came out. So I was kind of I was happy that they're making a sequel, but I was like, the first one wasn't really a huge hit given the consequences and circumstances that, the movie was in, with being released during COVID and having a short theatrical window. But again, word of mouth was really strong on it. I get great reviews, great audience score. So I guess like Universal goes, hey, listen, this movie did well. Let's do a sequel. And I think I'm definitely been more I guess more cautious with sequels over the past couple years. I think I've been burned more than I've been like, oh man, that was a great sequel, and I'm a little bit more cautious and a bit more like hesitant now. But this one, I was like, you know what, I love the first one, so we'll see. And the trailers definitely took a turn, a bit of a departure from the first one. The first one definitely more like a neo noir, like darker, grittier kind of thing, kind of tone. And this is more, I guess, lighthearted and more kind of like comedic. And I was like, okay, I kind of caught me off guard. And I was like, well, again, I love the first one. So again, big fan of Bob Odenkirk and David Leitch. So, I'm sad. I'm right there day one, no matter what. But again, Nobody 2 follows workaholic assassin Hutch Mansell takes his family on a much-needed vacation to the small tourist town of Plummerville. Excuse me. However, he soon finds himself in the crosshairs of a corrupt theme park operator, a shady sheriff, and a bloodthirsty crime boss. How I pitched this movie out of the theater reaction when we did our reaction and talking to people outside the theater, this is literally, picture it is, it's National Lampoon's Vacation, the first one, meets the first Nobody and John Wick. Like, that's the best way to pitch this movie. This is a great way to end the summer of the movies. It really is. It's a fun summer action comedy that's bombastic as the first one is. It's funny seeing it. I still can't believe that Bob Odenkirk of all people is this ruthless assassin, badass. They call him the Auditor in this franchise, in this universe. Again, very similar type of John Wick kind of character, but not as, like, I think, lethal or ruthless as John Wick. Still pretty ruthless, don't get me wrong, but like how John Wick was operating on a whole different level. I would say like it would be like a few steps under John Wick, but again, it's a fun movie, guys. It really is. Like I said, a bit of a departure from the first. It's more light. It's more colorful, a bit more lighter in terms of kind of like certain shots. The first one, a lot of the action was either at night or like really in dark scenes. And I liked that because it was very kind of like, it was really, again, it was gritty. It felt very kind of like street, it felt like underground. And I was like, oh, I like this. But again, I think what Bob Odenkirk, as being a producer on these movies too, he wanted to do like a fun summer action popcorn flick that not really a family friendly movie, but like a movie that kind of like, he took it as kind of like a Jackie Chan inspiration, but a little bit more brutal and a little grittier. And it's brutal for sure. This movie, as the first one was, it is brutal, and the kills are fun. The kills are fun to watch. He's very like, if Kevin McAllister from Home Alone grew up, this would be this character, because the way he kind of set up the traps in the first Nobody movie and the way he kind of set up the traps in this movie, you're like, oh, this is a grown ass Kevin McAllister, and that makes total sense. Like I said though, Bob Odenkirk has not missed a beat. You can tell he's having so much fun with this movie. I mean, everyone in this movie having a good time for sure, like everyone. And I think that even the first one too, you definitely saw kind of hints of like people having fun, again that kind of David Leitch, Kelly McCormick type of action, practical, in your face, not really, the jump cuts and tons of editing. And I would say the action is definitely on par with the first one. Again, I would say the action is definitely more comedic and definitely more not corny, but it's definitely more comedic and definitely more stylized for sure. I think the first one had, again, more rough and tough, grittier. Like I said, this one definitely has a lot of more stylish decisions in terms of kind of the fight choreography and some of the kind of like the camera work. And I was like, oh, this is definitely a bit of a departure. Again, different directors too. You could tell that the first Nobody, the director was then going for a certain tone and style, and then this director, being a different director, is going for his kind of style and tone. But they both work for the stories of each of these movies very well. I like the additions, more inclusion of the RZA and Christopher Lloyd. I felt like in the first one they're definitely utilized pretty well with like the second to third act. They have a lot more to do in this one, and the RZA has a really cool fight scene at the end, middle to the end, where I was like, oh hell yeah, this is why you brought him back. And it's a really cool scene where the crowd, our crowd, went crazy. They were like, yo, that's sick. And being that he's like, the Wu-Tang Clan are all like, they're all martial artists, martial art, fans and appreciate people who appreciate martial arts. RZA has a really cool martial arts scene where it's like you can definitely tell that he's been waiting for this to do this most of his career as an actor. You're like, oh hell yeah. And Christopher Lloyd has a lot more to do in this as well. He definitely has a little bit of like, and he has a great fight scene in the first one, but man, in this one, he has a really funny, really kind of like just wild and bombastic fight scene in this, where I was like, oh, that's cool. Yeah, this is why you brought him back. And his intro in this movie is really funny too. Again, I really do like that. This kind of like dynamic between Bob Odenkirk playing Hutch, his dad, and RZA playing his brother. I think both of them was Harry, and it works. His dynamic is so random because like who would have thought Christopher Lloyd for one, Bob Odenkirk, and the RZA. And listen, I'm a diehard Wu-Tang Clan. I grew up with the Wu-Tang Clan. I love all those guys, from Method Man to GZA to Old Dirty Bastard, Ghostface Killah, the RZA, all those guys, and all of them are pretty good actors for the most part too. But again, Bob Odenkirk, Christopher Lloyd, and the RZA. It works. It's a very, again, not on my bingo card of movie pairings, but hey, it works. And also too, they definitely utilize the family more in this. Connie Nielsen, who plays his wife, is returning, and the two kids, same actors as the first one as well. They definitely utilize the family more in this. The family element was definitely a big part of the first one, don't get me wrong, but they definitely are going for this kind of, again, if National Lampoon Vacation, including more of the family and following the dad shenanigans. And then Sharon Stone plays the villain in this, and I totally forgot she was in this until our friend Nina was like, holy shit, that's Sharon Stone. And I was like, oh, that's Sharon Stone. And I've seen her in a movie in a very, very long time. And I'll be, again, this is where my kind of like, critiques come in, or criticism comes in, where you can definitely tell she had a lot of fun with this role, but the villain is so cartoonish and it's so like one note and really goofy. But again, you definitely tell Sharon Stone's having a good time in this role, playing this really kind of like this really horrific and awful, arms, villainous dealer. And actually pretty cute Frenchie in this movie too. But for as villains go, it's so forgettable. I mean, like, oh, Sharon Stone's in this, right? It's very forgettable. It's not like a performance of like, oh, the villain that was very good. Kind of the first movie too. As much as I love the first Nobody movie, the Russian villain in that was very kind of like John Wick, kind of like table scraps. So it was like, oh, it was the Russian mobster, Okay, so like I say, I mean, both these movies don't have the best villains, but you definitely tell that the actors who are playing the villains are having a lot of fun and they're enjoying kind of playing these kind of really sadistic people. And also, speaking of villains, they also add Colin Hanks, Tom Hanks' son, and oh my gosh, I know his name too. I see him in so much stuff. Bear with me. Why am I blanking on his name? I was literally like, oh, that's so and so the other day. The new additions are Colin Hanks, who plays Abel, who plays kind of the sheriff, who's like again total scumbag in this, and also my gosh, what is his name? Guys, I'm so mad at myself that John Ortiz, who I've seen him in so much stuff, and he's been things that I love, whether it's Silver Linings Playbook or the Fast and Furious franchise. John Ortiz and Colin Hanks both play additional villains as well. Again, they don't really add their characters only add too much of like the oh wow whatever, but again you can tell they're having fun with it. And Colin Hanks has some really kind of like so corny one-liners that are like, oh, you're putting that kind of like typical stereotypical like, this is my town, I'm the sheriff here, blah 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 blah. It's like, okay man, we've seen that in so many like action movies or movies with the bad guy. But again, I think the movie acknowledges what it is, and they for sure lean heavy into that, no doubt about it. So you definitely enjoy that about everyone who's then they know what movie they're involved in, they're a part of. And again, it's not anything too serious or too deep or like I'm going to show this or whatever. No, it's an action comedy that's made for this summer that everyone can enjoy. I do think that some of the humor, I think the first movie balanced humor and action a bit better. I think the balance was definitely walked a lot better in the first one. This one is for sure a lot more comedic than the first. And I think that they probably I think audience responded to the comedic elements of the first one, and I think the studio and the people involved were like, "Ooh, comedy really worked. Let's lean more into that." And I think some of the jokes were some of the humor worked really well. Like, oh, this is really funny. But there was a period of time where I just wasn't laughing, and you can tell like some of the jokes weren't landing for the audience either, and you're just like, oh, maybe you're a little. I think you made too heavy on the comedy this time around. Maybe you go back to back. Again, if they do a third one, again, if they do a third or fourth one, sign me up. I'm there for all these movies. But to do a third one, I would go back to how the first one balanced the tones very well of being serious and ruthless and gritty, while having some comedy instilled here and there that worked. Where this takes more of like hey, this is an action comedy. You're like, okay, again, you're leaning to what definitely worked in the original, but again, if you don't balance it well enough, I thought they didn't balance it well enough in this one, fortunately. But again, that's a few critiques where I'm just like, oh my gosh, how dare they? Because again, you as a filmmaker and as filmmakers, you definitely want to include what did well in sequels to make it more successful, or bring maybe more of a different audience in this. And Nick, I'll probably do his review of this movie next week when we're all back on next week's episode. He didn't see the first one, but he had a good time with this one because, again, I think he was like, I'm intrigued to watch the first one even more now. But again, it's really a fun way to end the summer of the movies. I kept thinking about it. I was like, this is a perfect summer movie, but also a perfect way to end. We had a great summer from big blockbusters, from Mission Impossible to 28 Years Later to F1 to Thunderbolts, Fantastic Four, Jurassic, and this is a good antidote to end hey, we're gonna be coasting up summer movies to the fall, and this is a really good. I think I'm most surprised at August. This August of all months, I said this last week too, that August used to become a dumping ground for shitty movies. And it still is to a degree. I think I've been changed. I think that my opinion that my take on that has been changed a little bit the past couple of years. Excuse me. But this time around with weapons and this and Naked Gun, and I'll get into this a little bit, Freakier Friday, and I'm hoping the Roses is good. I'm hoping Caught Stealing is good. That I'm kind of surprised that towards the end of the summer, we're still getting really enjoyable movies that are being well received, and also there are crowd pleasers. And I'm like, hey, you know what? This summer again, I think this year has been great for filmmaking and for movies and the movie going experience. I really hope this movie does well because I definitely am a fan of the people involved and these two movies. Like I said, I wasn't a big fan of the comedy this time around. I thought some of the action scenes were just really kind of, I could say, innovative for sure, and they were just so much fun to watch. I never watched another action scene. They're bombastic, and every time I'm just like, yeah, get him, Hutch, get him, Bob. Come on, RZA, come on, Christopher Lloyd, or come on, John Ortiz. Get it. It was just fun. And also, again, I did like that they gave Connie Nielsen a really cool action scene that, hey, everyone in this movie kicks all kinds of ass. So with that said, I'm going to give Nobody a solid 7 out of 10. I think the first one a 9 out of 10. I would say I'm teetering 7.5. But I'd have to give this movie a 7 out of 10. And it was really enjoyable. I had a great time with this movie. And again, see it with the crowd, because I think when you see an action movie like this, or the John Wick movies or whatever, seeing with the crowd, when people go, ooh, 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 kind of some of the action scenes, you're like, that kind of definitely enhances the experience. And when the comedy definitely lands, even, hearing a room full of people just laugh together, it's a whole cathartic experience too. So again, Nobody 2, I'm giving it a solid 7 out of 10, and it hits theaters this weekend from Universal Pictures. Alrighty, folks, moving into another sequel, Freakier Friday. Like I said, I just got out of the theater a couple of minutes ago. In this movie, it's a movie that I think a lot of us probably asked for why again, and I tend to ask that a lot recently too in movies, sequels, where I'm just like, did we need a sequel to this? And the times where I'm like, oh, I was stand corrected, that worked. And there's times where I was like, yeah, might probably keep this one maybe on ice or not have been made. And again, so for some context as well, I have context to give you for these movies. The first Freakier Friday, man, I love that movie. That's a big part of my childhood. I have super nostalgia for that movie. I really do. I remember seeing that on a field trip when we were in summer camp when we were in downtown Chicago, and I remember I think we saw that and we saw Agent Cody Banks, which is also a awesome summer if you ask me as a kid. I'm like, 2 movies for summer camp? Heck yeah. But I love the first one, and I remember I feel like that movie. I remember watching it with cousins, or I watching it again just on Disney Channel or whatever, and it was a fun movie. And I haven't seen the original movie. I forgot from when. I think Jodie Foster is in it. But again, the 2003 one, Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, iconic in my eyes, and I have a lot of nostalgia for it. And I just watched it again with my brother recently last weekend. And it holds up very well. I was like, this movie holds up really well. It's definitely a time capsule of 2000s high school and kids of that era. But again, it still works. And I caught myself laughing a lot rewatching it last week. I'm like, oh, this is still really funny. This holds up. So I look, you know what? I'm going with the open mind for Freakier Friday. I'm excited. And I was hearing good things about it from, early reactions and, the early screens of it. I was like, okay, cool. So again, I was planning on seeing it last week, but last week was been so hectic. I'm going this week for sure. Like I said, I had some time on my hand today after work before I did the podcast. I'm like, again, I can't just give you guys one review. So walked to my Regal next to my apartment, and sure enough, saw Freakier Friday, and I was the only dude in that theater. Represent. Come on, guys, represent. Proudly represent in that theater. And you know what, guys, this is a very very sweet and very silly sequel that definitely delivers on certain things. But Freakier Friday, 2 decades after a identity crisis, Anna's blended family faces new challenges. Tess and Anna discover that their past may be repeating with the next generation. And what they mean by that is that Lindsay Lohan, Tess and Anna, Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis, they are now swapped with Julia Butters, who plays Harper, who plays Lindsay Lohan's daughter, as well as what's the actress's name? Sophia Hammonds plays Lily, who plays the daughter of soon to be Lindsay Lohan's daughter and stepdaughter, as she's marrying Eric Davies, played by Manny Jacinto. I'm probably butchering last name. So now there's 4 people getting body swapped. So that's why the freakier in the title. Like I said, it's a very silly, very goofy, follow up. Is it anything original or changing the genre? Hell no, not at all. Far from it. But as a fan of the original, I was definitely satisfied. I was definitely pleased because it's a feel-good movie too. It's not deep. It's not trying to preach anything. It's not trying to it's about the metaphor between this. No, it's not. It's just a sequel 22 years in the making. You bring back Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan, who made that first one really iconic. And again, it's a big staple for people my age and a bit older than me. And you can tell like the first one, they had a great time, and this one too. You can tell everyone's having a great time on set together. The humor definitely works. I think the humor in the first one works a bit better, or was more consistent in the first one. Where this one, the jokes, you can tell the jokes don't always land. And my theater wasn't too bit packed, but you could tell when there was moments for a joke or a punchline, it just was kind of quiet. I didn't laugh either. Where I was like, oh, that was meant to be a joke that didn't work. Maybe if I saw it in a bigger theater with a bigger audience, that might have been a different thing. But for the most part, the humor in this isn't as consistent. But there was times where I laughed out loud. I'm like, that's pretty funny, actually. Or I got a nice kind of giggle or a chuckle out of it. I was like, oh, that was kind of funny. Jamie Lee Curtis, guys, steals the show. Jamie Lee Curtis steals the show. And if you're watching the first one, the 2003 one the other day, I was like, man, Jamie Lee Curtis is so good in this, and she in this one too. She hasn't missed a beat. Her comedic timing is so sharp and witty. It works. And also too, it's great seeing Lindsay Lohan back on the big screen. I feel like she's having a comeback right now. Not just a few movies on Netflix, but seeing her in a big, mainstream mainstream theatrical movie like this makes me happy. Again, a big part of my childhood too, from Mean Girls to Herbie Fully Loaded, the OG Freaky Friday. So seeing her on the big screen, and seeing her kind of in her element was really fun to watch. I was like, oh, good for Lindsay Lohan. So I hope this kind of triggers a comeback for her. And the two daughters, I'm pulling up right here. I said, Julia Butters, who was, again, a scene stealer in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood years ago. She's making a name for herself. Good for her. And what is her name? I'm blanking on her name, too. Let's see. Again, I said it, too. Who plays the other daughter? Come on. Bad radio, Doug. Come on. Sophia Hammonds. They hold their own, too. You know, again, I know who Julia Butters was, but again, not knowing who Sophia was, they hold their own. And again, all four of them have great chemistry. It all works. You believe their whole dynamic of like, hey, like, who's gonna be who? Who's gonna be our family? You can tell that they don't want to be part of this. They want this happening to them. Or again, for Jamie Lee Curtis and Tess and Anna, Lindsay Lohan's characters, and it works. Their dynamic definitely works. And you know, both. I will say, I think Jamie Lee Curtis playing I think a 13 or 14-year-old is really funny. She already did it, you know, back 20 years ago. And Lindsay Lohan playing a also 14-year-old too. It works, and they commit to the bit. They commit to everything. Also, I think even with the comedy not always working, the editing is kind of all over the place at times too. There were some cool edits where I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool, or some cool camera work. But you can tell the editing is very kind of just like very frantic, where it's just like, oh, I see a lot in these kind of like, not all of them, but these either Disney remakes or sequels or Disney Plus movies, where I noticed a lot of the editing is all over the place. You're like, whoa, hold up, calm down, relax a little bit. And again, if you're a fan of the original, I think you're in for a treat with this one. A lot of callbacks for sure, but you know, it's someone. I think it definitely has for sure some nostalgia to it, for me at least. But I didn't think the movie was too heavy on nostalgia, where it was like, oh, remember this? There was for sure times of like, oh, that's a callback from that one, or this person's back from this one. But it didn't like whack you over the head with it, and I definitely appreciated that. And the callbacks definitely worked for me. Like, oh yeah, that's that person, or it's that person, or it's funny seeing that works. And again, as someone who definitely really loves the first one, you know, it was fun seeing, you know, Lindsay Lohan, Jamie Lee Curtis back in these roles again. And like I said, Jamie Lee Curtis, her comedic timing is so good. And like I said, it was really fun to see Lindsay Lohan back. I will say they don't really give. I mean, the movie for sure has some nice, you know, sweet messages about, you know, family and motherhood, and you know, trying to fit in, and like, you know, even grief at times. Where I was like, wow. I mean, the first one I messaged about grief and, you know, moving on and change, and as someone who definitely, you know, doesn't do well with change myself, I was kind of surprised that both these movies kind of definitely handle this heavy subjects about change and grief, and I was like, oh, good for them. I do think the Manny Janito and Lindsay Lohan don't have really much chemistry. They're supposed to be in love. I didn't really buy the love story yet. They felt like in two different movies at times, where I was like, are you sure you're supposed to be in love? And that could have been the point, because again, you know, her daughter is now swap bodies with, you know, Lindsay Lohan's character. But you can tell, you're like, the chemistry between these two are not that great. And Hour 51, it definitely drags in times. Or there were like definitely prolonged comedic scenes where you're like, okay, let's kind of keep going with it. And I do think the Hour 51 could have been trimmed down a little bit. Solid soundtrack, you know, some songs from the original too are in this. Sorry, the 2003 one are in this as well. And again, a lot of kind of funny, a lot of fun and cool callbacks, and you know, cast members coming back to this one as well. And again, it's a fun time in the movies. And again, my point about Nobody too is that, wow, like seeing August have these really, like, you know, what a way to end summer, and these movies that could have been like, oh, this is gonna be whack, and it's surprising us. Like I said, from Naked Gun to Weapons to this to Nobody 2, is like August has had some actually decent movies for us to watch on the big screen of all places too. So while it doesn't reinvent the wheel at all or add anything kind of new to the genre, or, you know, like again, it could have been a Disney Plus movie. Again, as someone who's, you know, pro theatrical, this probably was a Disney Plus movie in concepts, but I'm so glad I saw it in theaters. So I would give Freakier Friday a 6.5 out of 10. Again, it would be fresh on the Rotten Tomatoes score, but as someone who really does like that first one a lot, I was times where I was like, oh, this is definitely not as quality as the first one. But again, also appreciate, movies being shot on real locations too. Like, again, this is not really a huge budget movie, but again, this could have been I mean, again, it's definitely, you can definitely tell it was shot in LA a little bit, maybe in Atlanta, probably in Atlanta for the most part. But again, for a sequel, for a quote unquote legacy sequel that's 22 years in the making, I was pleasantly surprised that this definitely delivered on a lot of good jokes, a lot of kind of funny moments, and nice heartfelt moments too. So yeah, guys, if you're a fan of the original, grew up with the 2003 one, or even the original Jodie Foster, check it out. It's fun. See it with the crowd if you can. And again, if they do a third one, sure. Also, real shout out too, Vanessa Bayer is really fun. Vanessa Bayer has some funny. She's kind of like the sidekick, and she's really funny in this. She has some funny moments where I'm like, oh, it's pretty funny. So overall, yeah, if I definitely recommend this movie if you are a fan like me of the original, or kind of want to see a feel good, fun time in the movies, check this out. Alrighty, folks, and on that note, that is this week's review roundup episode. I'm trying to think. I said anything more to tease for you all. We might have a screening on Tuesday. It's in the works. Nothing confirmed yet. We are still looking for guests. If you know anyone or want to be on the show yourself, let us know in the comments or DM us. DM us on Midway Avenue Productions on Instagram, or DM me on Instagram at TheYoungJones. We would love to have you all on the show. We're always looking for guests and people to kind of talk movies with, and what have you been watching, or TV shows, all things entertainment with. I'm trying to think, what else can we tease in the meantime? Not much. Let's see. I think our first screening. We have our first screening. I don't know if we can talk about that yet. The first week of August. Yeah, August. First week of September, and we have one after that too. And then we also got a cool event that I can't really say much next Saturday. So look out for that. A lot more content coming to the social medias as well. Trying to grow our Instagram even a bit more. Yeah, the 4,000 of you that have been following us, it's huge. We're trying to hopefully get to 5,000 by the end of the year. That'd be awesome for us. And we're still trying to grow the TikTok a little bit, but I know our home audience definitely finds us on Instagram and YouTube, and the audio element of the show. So we definitely appreciate you all there. I'm trying to think else we can tease. Like I said, I'm still trying. Hopefully, I think as the summer kind of winds down, I'm going to start to prep more, audio newsletters for movie updates and news updates, stuff like that, and kind of just peek into current behind the show itself. So look out for that. But yeah, as summer is coming to an end, we still have a lot more in store for you all for 2025. Like I said, we are still eager to review a lot more cool stuff and cover a lot more cool events on our socials and, of course, the show itself. But thank you all for joining this week. Like I said, I hope you're enjoying the last leg of summer. As always, go to the movies. There's so much stuff going on. F1's back in IMAX. If you've seen F1 yet, see it in IMAX. It's awesome. I think, again, Superman's still playing. F4 is still playing. Naked Gun is still playing in theaters. Like I said, Weapons is fantastic. See a fun, feel-good movie like this. Freakier Friday, action comedy like Nobody too. But I've been really I'm really impressed of how the variety of films that are still playing in theaters, but also what this summer has offered to us. So hey, never too late. Go see a movie, enjoy yourself, treat yourself, like they say in Parks and Rec. Until then, my friends, stay cool, stay safe, and as always, we will see you guys at the movies.